All right, so we're diving deep into Atomic Habits today by James Clear.
Oh, yeah, this is a good one.
Have you read it?
Yeah, I have. It's really fascinating.
This is one of those ones that it's not like your typical self-help book,
Yeah,
kind of goes deeper than that.
It does.
It's not just about these little, hacks and stuff.
No, and I think that's one of the things that I found really refreshing about it is that it really dives into the psychology of habits.
Yeah.
And he makes a very compelling case that it's not just about achieving goals, but it's about shaping your identity.
Right, and becoming the kind of person who naturally does those things that you want to do, almost effortlessly.
Exactly.
So one of the things that he talked about is this concept of, I think he calls them atomic habits.
Yeah, atomic habits.
So it's like these tiny changes,
Yeah.
but they compound over time.
Right.
And he gives this example of the British cycling team and how they made these 1% improvements.
Right.
And it led to them just dominating in the Olympics.
Yeah, and a lot of times when we think about making changes, we think about making these big sweeping changes.
Right.
But what Clear argues is that it's those small incremental changes, those 1% improvements that actually make the biggest difference.
Well, and it's so easy to discount those because you don't see the change. You don't see the effect immediately.
Exactly. And that's what he calls the plateau of latent potential,
Oh, I love that.
where it's like, you're putting in the effort, but you're not seeing the results right away, so it feels like you're not making any progress.
Yeah.
But what's happening is that you're building up this potential,
Right.
and eventually you hit this critical point, and then bam, change happens.
I love how he uses that ice cube analogy.
Yes, the ice cube analogy is perfect.
So it's like, you're heating up an ice cube.
Yeah,
And it seems like nothing's happening.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it starts to melt.
exactly.
And it's the same thing with our habits.
It is, and it's so easy to get discouraged when we don't see those results immediately.
Oh, totally. We're so impatient for results. And it's like, no, it's really those tiny drops of water that eventually carve out the Grand Canyon,
Absolutely. It's the consistency over time that really matters.
Yeah. So one of the other big things that he talks about is this idea of identity-based habits.
Yes, and this is a crucial concept in the book.
So can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Sure. So Clear argues that lasting change comes from shifting your identity, not just setting goals.
Okay.
So it's not just about saying, I want to lose weight or I want to make more money.
Right.
It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally does those things.
Like I am a healthy person, I am a saver, or yeah.
Exactly. And he says that every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
So if you want to be a writer, the act of writing, even for a few minutes each day, is a vote for that identity.
That totally resonated with me.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's not about just writing a book. It's about being a writer,
Exactly.
Like a very subtle shift, but I feel like it can have a huge impact.
It does. It's a fundamental shift in perspective.
Yeah. So how does that apply to everyday life? Can you give us an example?
Sure, let's say someone wants to be more financially secure, but they keep overspending. Clear would argue that their spending habits might stem from an identity of being someone who consumes rather than saves.
Okay.
So it's not just about budgeting, it's about becoming a saver.
Okay. So what are some small things that people can do, like those little votes they can cast, to start shifting their identity?
Well, for example, if you want to be a healthier person,
Yeah.
instead of focusing on just losing weight, you could start by making small choices every day that align with that identity. Like choosing a healthy snack over a sugary treat, or taking the stairs instead of the elevator.
Okay. Small little choices, but they add up over time.
Exactly. And each time you make that choice, you're reinforcing that identity of being a healthy person.
I like it, casting those votes.
It's like building a mosaic.
Okay.
Each tiny piece might seem insignificant on its own,
Yeah.
but together they create a beautiful, complete picture.
I love that analogy.
And Clear provides a framework for building those healthy habits with his 4 laws of behavior change.
Okay, let's get into that.
So he suggests making your desired habit obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying.
So those are the 4 laws.
Those are the 4 laws, yes.
All right, well, let's break those down one by one.
Sounds good.
I'm intrigued.
Starting with make it obvious.
Okay, make it obvious. What does that mean?
So this is all about being intentional with your habits. Instead of vaguely saying, I'll exercise more,
Right.
you use what he calls implementation intentions,
Implementation intention.
where you specify exactly when and where you'll exercise.
So, I would say, during the next week, I'll work out for at least 30 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m. in my living room or something.
Exactly.
So you're not just like, oh, I should work out more.
Right.
Like, you're actually making a plan.
You're making a clear appointment with yourself.
Okay.
And it makes it much harder to skip.
It removes that ambiguity.
Exactly.
And like, when you're tired, you don't have to think about it.
Exactly.
It's like it's already scheduled in your calendar.
Right. It's like you're removing the decision-making process from it.
It's like, oh, this is just what I do at this time.
Exactly.
Okay, so make it obvious. I like that one.
Yeah, it's a powerful principle.
So what's the next one?
The next one is make it attractive.
All right, let's talk about temptation.
All right, so this is where we get into the psychology of desire.
Mm-hmm.
Clear suggests something called temptation bundling.
Temptation bundling, what is that?
The idea is to pair an action you need to do with one you want to do. So, for example, if you love listening to podcasts,
Yeah.
but you struggle to get yourself to exercise,
I feel personally attacked right now.
try listening to your favorite podcast only while you work out.
Oh, that's so smart.
It makes the workout feel less like a chore and more like something you actually look forward to.
And I actually do that sometimes without even thinking about it.
You see, you're already doing it.
It's like, yeah, it's like the only time I listen to certain podcasts. So it's like, I look forward to that.
Exactly.
Okay, so temptation bundling.
Mm-hmm. Make it attractive.
I like it.
All right, so we've made it obvious. We've made it attractive.
Yeah.
Now we need to make it easy.
All right, make it easy. I feel like this is a crucial one because, like, starting anything new, there's effort involved.
Absolutely.
You're battling inertia, old patterns, sometimes plain old laziness. So
yeah.
how do you make it easy to do the right thing?
Well, one of the key things here is environment design. Clear suggests optimizing your surroundings to make good habits the path of least resistance.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, if you want to work out in the mornings, prepare your workout clothes and equipment the night before.
Oh, yeah, it's so smart.
So you're not scrambling around trying to find things when you're half asleep.
You remove that initial hurdle.
Exactly. You're removing that friction.
Okay.
Another strategy he highlights is the 2-minute rule.
The 2-minute rule. All right, tell me about this.
This is a brilliant one.
Okay.
The idea is to scale down any new habit to a 2-minute version.
Okay.
So instead of a 30-minute workout, start with just 2 minutes of stretching.
So it's like tricking your brain into getting started.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
You overcome that initial resistance, and often, once you've started, you find yourself wanting to continue.
It's like that saying, well, begun is half done.
Exactly.
Okay, I liked it. So 2 minutes. That seems doable.
Very doable.
Okay, so we've made it obvious, attractive, easy.
Right. And now the final law is make it satisfying.
Okay, let's talk about the fun part.
All right. So this is where we tap into our brain's reward system.
So how do we do that?
Clear suggests associating your habit with a positive feeling.
Okay.
So if you're trying to build a reading habit,
Yeah.
reward yourself with a cup of tea or a relaxing bath afterwards.
So you're creating that, like, positive association with it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Even a simple sense of accomplishment or checking off the habit on a tracker can be incredibly satisfying.
Sometimes the satisfaction just comes from the habit itself. Like, I get so much satisfaction from making my bed in the morning.
Oh, there you go.
It's like, it's such a small thing, but it sets the tone for the day.
Absolutely. Those small wins, those tiny moments of satisfaction contribute to building a positive identity and reinforce those good habits.
Well, and when you think about all these 4 laws working together, it's like, it really does seem like it takes the pressure off.
It does.
You're not forcing yourself. You're just kind of setting up these systems and making it, like, easier for yourself to do the right thing.
Exactly. It's about working smarter, not harder.
Okay, I like it.
All right. So those are the 4 laws.
I'm starting to get it. This is great.
We've got a lot more to dive into.
This is great, and I think we're just scratching the surface here with atomic habits.
Oh, absolutely.
There's so much more to explore.
There is, and I think what's great about this book is that it's not just theory.
Mm-hmm.
It's full of practical strategies and examples that you can actually implement in your life.
Okay, well, this has been great.
Absolutely.
So where do we go from here?
Well, I think it's important to understand how to break those bad habits that might be holding us back.
Okay, let's crack those bad habits wide open.
We can do that, and Clear offers some fascinating insights into that as well.
Stay tuned for more insights in part 2 of our deep dive into atomic habits.
So we're tackling bad habits now.
Okay, let's do it.
Now, remember those 4 laws we talked about for building good habits?
Yeah, make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying.
Right. Well, Clear says we can actually use those same laws, but kind of in reverse, to break bad habits.
Okay, I'm listening.
So instead of making the habit obvious, you make it invisible.
Okay.
Instead of making it attractive, you make it unattractive.
I'm starting to see where you're going with this.
Instead of making it easy, you make it difficult.
Okay, yeah.
And instead of making it satisfying, you make it unsatisfying.
Interesting. So it's like flipping the script on those bad habits.
Exactly. You're using the same principles, but working against the habit instead of for it.
Okay, so give me an example.
Okay, let's say you're trying to break the habit of constantly checking social media.
Oh, that's a timely one.
Right. So first, you would want to make it invisible.
So, like, put my phone in a drawer.
Exactly. Or turn off those notifications that are constantly tempting you.
Oh, I hate those red notification badges.
Right. They're designed to grab your attention.
They really work.
They do, and if you really want to go extreme, you could even delete the apps for a while.
Okay, cold turkey.
Exactly. Out of sight, out of mind, as they say.
So we've made it invisible. What's next?
Next, we want to make it unattractive.
All right. How do we do that?
Well, think about how you feel after spending hours scrolling through social media.
Usually kind of gross.
Right. You probably feel drained, unproductive, maybe even anxious, or comparing yourself to others.
Yeah, not my best moment.
So focus on those negative feelings.
Instead of that little dopamine hit you get from the likes and comments.
Exactly. Remind yourself that the short-term pleasure isn't worth the long-term cost.
Okay, so we've made it invisible, unattractive. Now how do we make it difficult?
Well, this is where those commitment devices we talked about earlier can come in handy.
Right, those pre-planned actions that make it harder to do the bad habit.
Exactly. So for social media, you could use website blockers or app timers.
Okay, so I'm literally preventing myself from accessing those apps.
Right, or you could even ask a friend to change your passwords for a while.
Okay, now that's commitment.
It's about taking those extra steps to make it as hard as possible to engage in the bad habit.
All right, so we've covered the first three. Make it invisible, unattractive, and difficult.
Right, and the final one is making it unsatisfying.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, instead of focusing on the immediate gratification you get from the bad habit,
Yeah.
try to focus on the positive outcomes of not engaging in the habit.
Okay, so like with social media, I would focus on the fact that I would have more time for hobbies or feel less anxious.
Exactly. Or maybe you would sleep better or be more present with your loved ones.
I like it.
It's about shifting your perspective from what you're giving up to what you're gaining.
This is really eye-opening. It's like a whole new way of looking at breaking bad habits.
And remember, breaking bad habits, just like forming good ones, is a process.
Yeah, there will be slip-ups along the way.
Absolutely, but don't get discouraged.
So we've talked about the 4 laws, both for building good habits and breaking bad ones.
Right. It's a framework you can apply to any area of your life.
I like it. A framework for self-improvement.
Exactly.
So what else does Atomic Habits have to offer? What other gems are hidden in those pages?
Well, I think it's important to delve into the concept of the Valley of Disappointment next.
Valley of Disappointment. Ooh, that sounds ominous. Tell me more.
It is a bit ominous, but it's a reality that we all face when trying to change our habits.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is the Valley of Disappointment? Okay, so we're back. We've been talking all about Atomic Habits.
Yeah, lots of great stuff in this book.
We've talked about building good habits, breaking bad ones, the 4 laws of behavior change.
Right, it's a whole system for change.
But one thing that I think a lot of people struggle with, myself included, is like, how do you stay motivated over the long haul?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
Like, we start these habits with all this energy and enthusiasm.
Yeah, you're like, this is it. This is the year. This is the month. I'm doing it.
New Year's resolutions, anyone.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
But then, a few weeks later, the motivation fizzles out.
And you're like, back to your old ways.
Back to square one.
So what does Atomic Habits say about that?
Well, one of the things that Clear argues is that relying solely on motivation can actually be counterproductive.
Oh, interesting.
Because motivation is fleeting, it's like the weather, it's unpredictable.
Yeah, some days you're feeling it, some days you're not.
Exactly. So instead of waiting for motivation to strike, we need to build systems that make good habits automatic.
Okay, so it's not about feeling motivated. It's about having that system in place.
Exactly. You're creating an environment and a routine that supports those desired behaviors.
Okay.
Even when you're not feeling your best.
Even when you don't want to.
Even when you don't want to, exactly.
It takes the pressure off, right?
It does. It takes the pressure off of having to rely on willpower all the time.
Because, let's be real, willpower is limited.
It is. It's a finite resource.
Like, you only have so much of it.
Exactly.
If you can automate those good habits, it's like...
You don't even have to think about it.
It becomes effortless.
It's like setting up those dominoes.
I love that analogy.
One after the other, you just knock that first one over.
And the rest fall into place.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So how do we build those systems? Like, what are some practical tips?
Well, remember we talked about those automatic savings plans?
Yeah.
That's a great example of a system.
Right. You don't have to think about transferring money every month.
It just happens automatically.
It's taken care of.
Exactly.
So, like, what are some other examples of things people can do?
Well, meal prepping is a great one.
Oh, yeah.
If you spend a few hours on the weekend prepping your meals for the week,
Yeah.
you're much more likely to eat healthy throughout the week.
Because you're not, like, scrambling, trying to figure out what to eat at the last minute.
Exactly. You've already made the decision.
Okay, I like it.
And another thing that Claire suggests is incorporating variable rewards.
Okay, remind me about variable rewards. So remember we talked about how those slot machines are so addictive?
Yeah, you never know when you're going to win.
Exactly. It's that unpredictability that keeps people coming back for more.
So how do we apply that to our habits?
Well, let's say you're trying to make exercise a regular habit.
Okay.
Instead of doing the same workout every day, which can get boring,
Right.
try mixing it up, try different classes, listen to different music, explore new routes for your runs.
So you're keeping it interesting.
Exactly. You're injecting a little bit of novelty and surprise.
Okay.
And that can actually make you look forward to the habit even more.
It's like that element of the unknown.
Exactly.
You're like, what am I going to do today?
And it taps into our natural curiosity and
Yeah.
desire for new experiences.
I like it.
And Clear also talks about the importance of falling in love with boredom.
Okay, now this one I'm going to need you to explain.
I know it sounds counterintuitive, right?
Yeah, I mean, boredom is usually not something we strive for.
Right, but what Clear's getting at is that mastery in any field requires a certain level of consistency,
Okay.
even when it's not glamorous or exciting.
Yeah.
Think about those Olympic athletes who train for years,
Right.
repeating the same drills over and over again.
Or like musicians practicing their scales.
Exactly. It's about showing up and doing the work,
Yeah.
even when you don't feel like it.
Even when it's not fun.
Even when it's not fun. Exactly.
Okay, so it's about embracing that process.
It is, and it's about recognizing that the path to greatness is often paved with those seemingly ordinary moments of
Yeah.
consistent effort.
So it's not always going to be exciting.
It's not, and that's okay.
We have to be okay with that.
We do, and I think it's important to remember that even professionals, the most successful people in their fields, struggle with motivation sometimes.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Right. They're not superhuman.
Yeah, we put them on this pedestal.
Exactly.
And we think they're always motivated and always killing it.
But the reality is, they experience dips in motivation just like everyone else.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
It should, because it means that you don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
You just have to keep showing up.
Keep showing up.
And one of the ways to do that is by focusing on those small wins.
Right, celebrate those little victories.
Exactly.
No matter how small.
No matter how small, because they all add up over time.
So like, if you're trying to eat healthier and you make a healthy choice for lunch,
Yeah.
celebrate that. Don't be like, oh, it's just one meal.
Exactly, because it's one meal closer to your goal.
Okay, I like it.
And it reinforces that identity of being a healthy person.
So all these little things add up.
They do. It's the compound effect in action.
Okay, this has been amazing.
It's been fun.
I feel like I've learned so much about atomic habits.
I hope so.
And I'm definitely going to be putting a lot of these strategies into practice.
Me too. It's a great reminder.
So to wrap things up, what would you say is the most important takeaway from atomic habits?
I think it's that lasting change is possible for anyone.
Okay.
It's not about willpower or talent. It's about understanding the science of habit formation
Yeah.
and applying those principles in a way that works for you.
It's about making those small changes
Right.
consistently over time.
Consistently. That's the key.
And anyone can do it.
Anyone can do it. Absolutely.
Okay, well, this has been awesome. Thanks for joining me today.
It's been a pleasure.
And thanks to all of you for listening to our deep dive into atomic habits.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Go forth and build those atomic habits.
Yes, one small step at a time.